One of the main characters in the film, outside of George, is the house that he tries to save.
First went to the house with a group of us on the Scout, and I walked in and was immediately creeped out.
You were fearful of what it would be. Once you got into it, it confirmed your worst nightmares.
The third floor specifically had this really strange vibe. Whatever happened up there, I'm sure it was really bad.
Because the house was very much a character in the film, we took a lot of time to try to find the right place. And we looked at about 60 abandoned buildings.
We saw all sorts of things from fecal matter on the second floor to blood on the walls where people were raided by the cops and it turned into like a gunfight.
It was very apocalyptic almost. You go in and there was stuff kind of scattered all over the place, and it looked like whoever had been there had left in a hurry, and it was very haunting in some regards.
There were photographs of heroin addicts taking pictures of these other girls that were naked.
It was evident that there was sort of an amateur, I don't know, junkie, prostitution, porno ring going on or something.
There were these two crawl spaces, and there was this lingerie on this small child-sized bed, and there were all these outfits that were laid out. It was very disturbing.
It was so disgusting, and part of what made it so disgusting was what was going on in that house before we got there to begin filming. And you could taste it, you could smell the sordid history that this house had been going through leading up to the point that we got there.
When we did scout the house, there was a very strange kind of altar type thing that was positioned in the very front part of the attic. And on this low-laying table were all this melted wax that had just poured over the sides, and some strange symbols, and lots of weird written papers and things were kind of all around. We ended up settling on the house mainly because it had a great look. It was kind of set back from the road, and it sat on this hill, and it had amazing light.
And action.
So we came up with a system to block out certain windows, to cut off certain light. And sometimes we would fold the piece of cardboard so just a little shaft of light, sometimes just ambient light, would be entering the room.
Shooting in the house was sort of a logistical issue. No running water. We had temporary electricity that we had to pull basically from a temporary box that we were allowed to put in there.
Hey, Joe, you got a screw that
The flooded basement is very important to the story. I wanted it to be a metaphor for the lake, to be this dark water where you weren't really sure what was lurking beneath the surface, almost like the deep recesses of George's own mind. I wanted that truth to come bubbling up until it would burst on the surface.
What we ended up doing was building a frame structure and then got pond liner that we had to try and seal that up, and we used sort of a rubber epoxy.
And the basement walls were so unstable that we were worried about the house coming down on top of us from the force of the water pushing on everything.
How's that water? This will wake you up, huh?
The pool was one of the scariest things. The first time I got into the pool, I wasn't wearing anything other than the clothes of George. The water was freezing cold. It wasn't 30, but it was like in the 40s. I remember trying to compose myself for a take and hyperventilating, or having my face really close to the water and trying to do something to contain the convulsions that my body were going through. There were times where I was maybe either too drunk or too crazy from the water that I would kind of sit back and go, you know, I think Lance is trying to kill me.
Okay, and action. George! We'll go back to one and cut.
Good. All right, roll camera. Quiet, please. We're rolling.
I never liked being up on the 3rd floor, especially alone, but even with other people.
So I was in the attic by myself and I was shooting out the front window. And all of a sudden, out of the corner of my eye, I felt like I saw something in my peripheral vision. And when I turned, there wasn't anything there, but all of a sudden I had this crazy sensation of like the hair on the back of my neck stood up, and then I turned, and the worst part about the attic was it would take so long, it felt like a long walk to get out of it.
So it was just bad all the way around. The attic was absolutely the worst. And you'd walk down this center hallway with these rooms on either side with all the doors open. And it would be cold. You know, you get goosebumps, you get this oppressive feeling.
I think some of that creepiness and some of that vibe from the house definitely came across in the movie. You know, the atmosphere of working in a location like that kind of puts the crew in a mood, puts your cast in a mood, and hopefully, you know, that translated onto the screen.